Good evening, everybody. System Chalk here with the 51st episode of our first run through Book of Hours on YouTube. And I have some decisions to make in terms of how I spend the day. So I'm basically resetting the telescope here just to see if I can do anything with the moon. Now, it did occur to me that I can still play around with some of the knock stuff. I think knock is the dispensary. Yeah. I don't think there's a lot that I can do with... Well, then again, there's also a couple of the altars that I can play around with. But yeah, let's play around with the dispensary first. And again, I'm not expecting any miracles here. It's just really a chance for me to kick the tires on a couple of recipes and see where things go. So I can use flowers or remains. I'm thinking... Well, no, there's a little bit in terms of remains. So let's give that a chance here. And for substances, we could try some knock liquids. I'm just trying to think. The sacrament acite is probably the best that I've got. Yep, we've got that. Okay, so that's not going to take us up to 15, but that should give us 10. Well, that'll give us 10 for basically any skill that we throw in here. So this should give us some good ideas about what we can accomplish with knock. And I don't recall what... it's the one with Rose. Anyways, I'll worry about that later. Okay, Edict's Liminal. Okay, so Glassfinger Toxin is actually very helpful. So Edict's Liminal with a Scholar level knock plus a liquid creates a Glassfinger Toxin. So in this case here, really I would just need to add a glass of water. Well, not exactly because we've got the 11, but it's essentially a glass of water and maybe a flower. Here. So being able to produce Glassfinger Toxin is quite helpful simply because it's a pretty powerful knock liquid. In fact, I believe it's right here. Yeah, so 2 forge, 4 knock. What is within without? What is without within? Poison sacred to the votaries of the Meniscate. Anyways, this isn't the only one we want to linger on, so let's keep going. In fact, you know what? I'm just going to double click and add everything in here. And the reason I'm doing this is that every once in a while, so this is a great example here. Drums and dances, right? We've got heart, we've got nectar, and something undiscovered. So we know it's not knock here, but maybe what I'll try is I'll actually try a couple of other ones afterwards. But because I keep forgetting that some of these other skills have... Go, Curious Hunch. Knit memories into certainty. The great signs and great scars with scholar level knock plus a memory creates a curious hunch. So that might be something that I want to use the fog for in this case because it looks to me... we need to throw something else in there, but yeah, we're definitely close. Now, I'm going to admit this is not the best way of going about it. Essentially, what I'm really trying to do here is kind of capture some of the notes that I would have in my spreadsheet. My own feeling in terms of how these recipes should be learned is to take them out of the books. And in this case, this is definitely one of these, you know, do as I say, not as I do thing. I mean, obviously play the game the way that you want. But given the fact that I'm trying to juggle a couple of different playthroughs in my mind, and given that I don't remember all the recipes off the top of my head, this is just a nice little way for me to put a few reminders inside of the recipes. Okay, this is all great stuff. Now the thing is, I still don't remember what things like curious hunches give me. So we're still, we're still kind of coming up short there. But given the fact that drums and dances has a third item, the first thing I want to try maybe is moth. We're at 4, so the moth orchid should bring us up to 5. Okay, so we know that it's not moth either. So what have we tried? We've tried moon. We've tried moth. Do we have an edge I could throw in here? Okay, winter. The perniculate would help. Oh, I add cat's claw and we'll be able to do that. Okay. Forge then. How do I even make that work? Let's skip that and go for Grail. Okay. Well, the nectar... Okay. I get to cheat a little bit with the nectar. Or maybe not. Oh, that's right. I need to use that in an instrument, so I wouldn't be able to bring in the malachite. Maybe it's scale. How would I make scale work, though? Well, we could try the xanthotic essence just on the odd chance. Yeah, no surprises there. Yeah, forge is a bit of a conundrum just in terms of how I make that work at the dispensary. Okay, so we haven't tried scale, we haven't tried forge, we did try grail, we did try edge. Heart is part of it, nectar is part of it. We tried winter. I guess I haven't tried rose. So I could throw a fet in. But where on earth am I going to find the rose that I need to make this work? That's an interesting question. Oh, we haven't tried sky either, so that's one that I want to add to the list. Not looking encouraging as far as rose goes. Oh, well, here's my forge answer. Okay. We're at 4 there, so if I find a flower with rose, which ironically is rather difficult. Okay. Well, shoot. Did I forget? Oh, no, because I guess I haven't done Sky. And Sky would actually make sense with drums and dances now that I think of it. Now, I've already used up the Faust, which is a little bit of a... No, hang on. We already had... No, we had Lantern. We didn't have Sky. Okay. And the problem with Lantern is... or with Sky is that there's no real Sky liquid. Ooh. Yeah, there's also no Sky fuel. That's gonna be a real puzzler, actually. But the more I think of drums and dances, the more I'm thinking that Sky is the answer there. So close. If I had a Faust, this would not even be a discussion. Curses. I'm trying to think. I don't think this helps me, but... Oh yeah, well this definitely doesn't help me. I'm just trying to think how I might be able to combine drums and dances. I can just throw the core in here. Yeah, so this doesn't help because I can just only add the Sky there. Okay, well that's a little bit of a shame, but these things happen. For the basics, now you know what, we'll wait for the telescope to become available. So let's start thinking about where I get my patterns from. So let's first set aside the core. I guess the health is already occupied. It's the core, the fet, and the tryst. And I guess we need to set aside the shaft. So realistically, what I have to work with here would be the metal, the whist, and the Arab in terms of reading the books. Now, also realistically, I'm only really going to be able to read one of them unless I want to renew the shaft, which I am completely happy to do, by the way. So yeah, here's what I'm going to do. Let's make some money at the Sweet Bones, basically because I can. Let's use metal to read one of the one of the knock texts. So by their marks you shall know them, I believe, is the relevant text. We'll read the Twin Serpent Tantra first. No, I should have used the Arab, actually. Either way it works. I'm just kind of keeping conscious of the books that I want to catalog. Well, you know what? Yeah, well, I can use the Arab for that anyway. And yeah, so let's also pick up some stuff. Although maybe I want to do that after a minute. Yeah, I think I will do that just because I want to play around with desires and dissolutions. Although that doesn't stop me from gardening. So, sea holly in summer, blue crown in winter, sea blessed pears in summer and autumn, and Numa the shining pear, Pyrus auriculanus. The history plant, agave terna flowers here in summer, fragrant chalice in summer and autumn, Lenten rose in winter, rarer plants might flourish in Numa, moth orchids in spring and summer, honey scarred jasmine in autumn. I feel like we might be short on honey scarred jasmine, so let's start with that. Herbs and infusions. Cat's claw in spring, trumpeter's lily in summer. I feel like I have quite a bit of trumpeter's lily, and it's less useful than it used to be because it's no longer a fuel, but we'll settle for that. Okay. Now, do I want to mess around with the fet here? I think I'm okay, so we wouldn't use that at Crowcross Sands, but we will use that on the moor. Just trying to make sure I'm not using up any... the knock we already investigated, so preliminal meter will be fine. The last leaves, toss and scutter. Okay, so a little bit of a planning session there, but I'm pretty happy with how this turned out. So the intention with the Whist absolutely is to restore it after I get it back. It's sort of in prep for what I'm going to do with the On the Winding Stair. Okay, I've carried a memory like a flambeau safe through the mazes of night. This will complete once dawn has come. And actually, this winds up helping me a little bit with desires and dissolutions. So we can actually probably try and mess around with the harp now. I'm not expecting miracles, but at least we have something resembling... I mean, theoretically I could bring in the earth sign. Actually, yeah, I'm trying to think if I have any omens that would be relevant. But this is more than I had before, so let's just see what comes out of this. Again, I'm not going to spend too much time on it. Okay, cat wink. An old wound. This one is kind of helpful because it's a persistent memory, but I don't want to lock too much into that without... Oh yes, actually the inks wind up being an interesting one too because they have 3 entries as well. Did I put in? Yeah. Salt sign, okay. I will confess, the marks have always been a tricky one for me to figure out. I haven't had a case where I wind up with a mark and I say, oh, I'm so happy I had that to craft with. Doesn't mean that they aren't useful. It just means I haven't found a use for them yet. Okay, so I'm not expecting too much more here, but okay, that's good to know that I can make a confounding parable if the need arises. So that comment may raise a couple eyebrows. What I mean by that is, particularly when I have an element of the soul that is afflicted, being able to... So the reason why we're gonna try this with the with the telescope next is just to try and get those scholar level recipes next. Another leaf on the Tree of Wisdoms. Okay, so we are ready to level up Insects and Nectars is quite generously elevated. So we'll use the Impulse here. Insects and Nectars, we'll use the Arab. So the reason this works is because when it has Western Gyred, Western Gryer is what the early monks of St. Brendan's called it, that old green sickness, the raptness of desolation, the terror of the wastes, and it is upon me now, the wood, the wood, the wood. So it's no longer Grail or Edge, it is Nectar. So that's why I'm able to use it to upgrade Insects and Nectars. Excuse me. Okay, the lens is asymmetrical, fragile, unstable. That's what gives it power. A fiendishly simple and wretchedly fragile optical device. So basically it gets one use as a tool. But it does grant 2 lantern and 2 sky. It's also a lens and glass, which makes it useful in some cases. But this is it. The main purpose was to get me access to Moon. So let's make sure that I actually make use of this here. So we still want to occupy a memory slot. Now this isn't quite inspiring. I feel like I may have... So I guess the big problem here is that it's cool that I can add the tools and all, but I only have the one tool for... It's like with the midnight mark, in this case it wants the wood, and I'm not going to be able to add wood here. Sickle and Eclipse, it wants remains. But again, the remains aren't gonna be relevant here. What else? Edict's Marshal might have a little bit more. So add a memory to find an even more bitter dream. Now, unfortunately, we're 1 short. Now that is where it gets interesting. So if we go with the... So this is actually an interesting one. Edict's Marshal with Scholar level Moon plus a memory creates a Wormwood Dream. Now, we wouldn't know this at this time in the playthrough, but I can actually let you know that the Wormwood Dream is a keeper level... it's a keeper level memory in some of the other ones. So this may actually be the use that I have for the fog today. And it's not that I don't want to read these other texts. I do. It's just that I can get those texts by just reading a normal pattern. So in this case here we've got the Twin Serpent Tantra. Just before the outbreak of the Great War, Alexander Sparrow, almost certainly a pseudonym, published leaflets claiming the influence of snake princes on world affairs. The text called the Twin Serpent Tantra was his primary inspiration. The Tantra describes the Great Hooded Princes, a dynasty of unclear origin engaging in prayers, sacrifices, and poetry in honor of the Key Serpent, the Crossroads Twins, and the Mirror Queen. Nagai encircles, Naga arises from wounds, Nagai spares those who are already harmed. The Great Hooded Princes are described as having escaped from the history of their death to a history where they yet live. The text claims that there are now 108 of them, but in one of their many instances of twinnedness, before they crossed from their death chronicle, there were only 54. So that's the pattern we were looking for. So what I should be able to do here is go to the Vagabond desk. So we'll add the shaft, we will add the pattern, we will add Edict's Liminal, and then the... Oh, did I get this wrong? No, it's an 8 text. Okay. So, Cardea's Delights. So, I'm a match for this book. Enough knock to match Mystery Knock. An afternoon spent profitably reading newspapers to the curious, writing affectionate letters for the lonely, steering farmers through the requirements of the Ministry of Agriculture. So I do still want to restore my whist here, so we will get that right back. Tuppence will buy me a hearty meal in a quiet place where I can rest and gather my thoughts. Okay, and yeah, I think I've made my decision as far as how I want to handle the fog. So I am going to turn that into a wormwood dream just because that's a little more permanent. Oh, that's Edict's Marshal I need. So there's the Tryst, and then we add the lunar globe. There we go. Recall a forgotten crime of moon and winter. So yeah, a little bit of a weird way to spend the day, but not a bad one. So up next, I want to use this Arab to get me my next pattern, and we'll do that with... well, we'll do that at Ava's desk, and then we'll use that with... Hey, where'd you go? By their marks ye shall know them. I've already mastered this, but I could reread it and perhaps recall a memory. The skill is now level 2. Its power aspects have also increased. Okay, now as far as basically just using my elements of the soul are concerned, or like there's not a whole lot for me to do with the consider verb at the moment. So I am going to investigate more of the house. We'll take a look at Baron Silence's astrolabe. Investigate the object. Now this will change as soon as I have other things to do. So for instance, I could use the whist to catalog a book, or I could use the whist to open the contraband flotsam. I have a number of options available to me, really, but let's take a look at what we get out of the book first, let's say. Okay, in autumn before the real chill comes, Trumpeter's lily still flourishes. Oh, a bit crowded. Where have I been keeping my other flowers? Yeah, up here. All right. Honeystar jasmine, like a dart of sweet fire. Unexpected finds in the folds of earth and sky. Well, animal bones, not... I mean, some of the things we're interested in do actually require remains. Oh, we're out of space for this stuff. Well, wouldn't be the first time I've kept something weird in here. Okay. So yeah, it's getting a little crowded. I really should find a place to put this driftwood fragment. I suppose I could wind up moving some of the flowers. Baron Silence's astrolabe. Thomas de Wolfe used this armillary, a spherical astrolabe, in his calculations, but it's much older than he was. The base is marked with the wave and bell of the prescribed city, Yes. And that gets us a touch memory. All right, on to the star-strewn chair. I really do want to catalog the books, but I'm actually thinking maybe I'll open up the contraband flotsam this time. And I've lost my nerve. I'm gonna move some of the plants over. There we go. Now we found a home for the driftwood. Star-strewn chair, velvet soft as starlight. The pattern was reputedly preferred by Baron Thomas. And we can now move... Well, before we do that, we may want to do something with our consider verb. So, knock, a familiar passage. By their marks you shall know them. A monster hunting initiate of the hour named the Colonel, who identifies herself as Little Sophia, provides advice on finding the weak spots of Long. Little Sophia observes dryly, should one desire to slay an immortal, it is most practical to do so before they become immortal entirely. She details the marks, the changes that Long undergo as they abandon their mortal condition. As the lantern Long begins to abandon its flesh, its skin becomes loose, its bones soften. The sixth mark is to be observed thus, when the flesh between the finger and thumb can be pulled to the final finger joint. There's the pattern we were looking for, so we're going to want to recover the shaft before too long. And I've got my whisk back. Okay, so for whist, I think, like I said, it's not the most exciting thing I can do with an element of the soul, but I am going to open the contraband flotsam, salt-stained, and wave-racked. What ship lost this? And we will also bring back the... Nope, I can't bring back the shaft because we are currently reading a book. How much longer do we have for that, actually? We have a minute. I don't think it would hurt for me to recover another element of the soul. Tuppence will buy me a hearty meal in a quiet place where I can rest and gather my thoughts. It's autumn when the leaves rustle. The silent landlady has served me apple pie with steamed cream in the window nook. One thing I didn't mention, by the way, is when you do the scholar level recipes, they are 90 seconds rather than a minute, although it's not like we were going to be using the telescope for anything else. All right, the Wormwood Dream. Let's hope it's equally possible to forget this again. If there are laws which apply only in dream, then it must also be that there are crimes which can only be committed there. What an image. So this one's kind of interesting because it is 6 moon and 6 winter. So it's persistent, it's an omen. It also has 3 edge. You can evolve via Skolakosophy with it. But the reason why this is kind of interesting, right, is that we used the... we had the moon that we were seeing what we could do with it. So in principle, you can use this to go even further with some of your moon stuff. So if we somehow were able to combine that with the fog, that would have become 9 that we could use with the instrument. Plus, you know, our tryst and our memories. But we'll keep that in the inventory. I suspect in the end I'll probably use it to read the secret colors. Let me just think about that. So Desires and Dissolutions and Wormwood Dream brings that to 11. We've got 12, 13 with a tool. So yeah, we're really one foggy day away from actually being able to read that pretty difficult text. And again, I get to keep the Wormwood Dream for as long as I want, so no shortage of things I can do there. Okay. Cordea's Delights, the 3rd volume of Abbot Geoffrey's hypothetical theological dialogues in the Socratic mode. If Janus were an hour, Cardera might be counted among his names, but the world has never turned in such a manner, and so she is not. Geoffrey discusses the living signs, signs which change their shape and whose flexibility is part of what makes it identifiable. He gives as one example the paradox of the hinge, and draws comparisons with the names called twins, who would be considered hours beyond the church. He hints at the amethyst vessel, which can be sanctified by the great signs in the presence of Knock. That would be the normal thing. I would normally actually make a note of something like this. And I'm going to guess that this gives us a pattern. So yeah, this would be almost certainly an indicator of... this would almost certainly be basically a recipe for a keeper level memory. So Great signs and great scars. Sorry, I'm just trying to think this through. Trying to think though what the amethyst vessel refers to, because I would imagine here there's amethyst ampule, but I can't imagine that that would be the well, maybe let's not count that out, but yeah, in any case, this would presumably be, presumably this is an indication in terms of something we should be doing with our knock. So that's a grail and a knock one. We are going to need 2, then 3. Okay. This may be a little challenging to deal with. Can I take this through the night? Probably not. Oops. Ah, we can. Okay, that's good news, actually. Alright, what else do I want to do? I need to wait a little while before I can renew something at the Sweet Bones. Better now. Okay, we'll renew the shaft. Tuppence will buy me a hearty meal and a quiet place where I can rest and gather my thoughts. Alright, well, back in there. Now, the core I was actually using just for the money. I'm not going to worry too much. I'm not going to be able to level up great signs and great scars tonight, and I'm going to be able to rest with that. Hang on, did I put that in the right spot? I bet I didn't. Yeah. So tomorrow is going to be a bigger cataloging day, I think. Yeah, so core is for the money, but I can continue to investigate the items. Now, the mirror scope, if I recall, required an unafflicted element of the soul. Yep, so no maladies allowed. I think in this case, then, we read as above, so below. And this isn't necessarily Secret Histories lore, but I have talked a couple of times. I believe this particular phrase of I think this is a reasonably well-known occult phrase, but this actually has its origins, I believe, in a document called the Emerald Tablet. I think it's probably legendary author is Hermes Trismegistus, the thrice-blessed Hermes, and I always keep thinking of the green jasper tablet whenever I think of it. So that would be considered I think actually in some cases it's considered the foundational alchemical text, although there might be some argument with that. Again, I tend to notice whenever I talk about this stuff, usually the audience is much more into the occult than I am, and so I always recognize that I am prone to error. So there's like fun little details that I know. So, you know, like, you know, it's weird how much history kind of plays out a bit like Assassin's Creed. So Aleister Crowley and William Butler Yeats knew each other and actually didn't like each other. So they had a bit of a fight. But again, whenever you run into, you know, famous figures showing up in the same places, and it was specifically because of the occult that they knew each other, I believe. I think I've talked before about how William Butler Yeats, I think, found Plotinus through Stephen McKenna, who did sort of this great monumental translation, I think probably the first certainly someone responsible for popularizing Plotinus's thought in English, and kind of has a life that plays out a little bit like a Cultist Simulator character, and quite literally dedicated his life to translating that work. So, and that was a solo project. I have a scholarly version of the Unedited now as well, and that one is actually a collection of translations. McKenna doing all of that on his own is a huge undertaking. But yes, anyways, it is always kind of fun to see these things. The other one, this definitely isn't Secret Histories related, but the other fact, I think it was Roald Dahl, I believe at some point wound up at Camp X in Canada. But I don't recall if Ian Fleming was also at Camp X. But Camp X actually kind of, this would definitely seem like the sort of thing that would show up in an Assassin's Creed game if they did that time period. So it's always kind of fun to mark that sort of stuff. But yeah, those are the little details that I know. But in terms of, you know, sitting down and actually really wrestling with, you know, with occult tomes and I mean, I couldn't tell you. I'm have minor familiarity with some of the major arcana of Tarot. I would not be able to like sit down and do a reading, and I actually probably couldn't even tell you all of the suits. Was it cups, pentacles, wands? I think there's two more. Coins? No, coins would be pentacles. Yeah, it's getting a bit late, so I'm sure as soon as I hit the stop recording button, it'll come to me. But we should wrap this up. So as above, so below, a framed page of illustrated vellum. Up close, the colors dazzle and puzzle. A handwritten slip of paper reads, Abbess Melissenth, 1100. Melissenth's work was sometimes reckoned to be too radiant for the eye. There's our site. Doesn't really help us for great signs and great scars. Always good to take a note of that sort of thing, though. Okay, that's it for tonight. I think we have one more episode in the week, but as always, rely on your calendars, rely on the the numbering of the episodes. If it's divisible by 4, probably it's the last episode for the week. But as always, thank you very much for watching. I definitely appreciate the fact that there are enough people to stop by to make me feel like it's worth doing. And we will be finishing off our knock texts and looking to improve great signs and great scars in the future episodes. Until then, take care.